Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today to continue our exploration of Galorian, and everything outside Galorian. We are ending our last Starfighter adventure path for a while, so I thought we would take time to go through another planet. Today, we deal with the first planet from Galorian's sun, Aballon. Let's begin. Aballon is also known as the Horse, due to the rate it travels around the sun, only taking around 90 days. The planet is mostly a barren wasteland, the lack of atmosphere making it difficult for anything organic to live on the surface. The one large exception is the various ice wells across the planet, them having enough native atmosphere to support those magically transported from places like Galorian. But what makes the planet what it is today is not what is natural, but what is artificial. Long ago, mysterious creatures called the First Ones came to the planet. The basic description of these beings are long forgotten, but the reason for their arrival is obvious. A direct supply of solar energy and deep veins of sky metal, which are still being mined well into Starfighter times. The First Ones created giant cities, which to call their own, as well as machines whose purpose was to harvest the resources of their adopted world. And then, they left, leaving the machines as the only being upon the world. These creatures are called Anacites. They are intelligent machines. When it comes to their physical form, they have no set mold, them being developed for a variety of purposes and open to improving and evolving their forms to work to the ever-distant goal of perfection. Everything from a giant bulldozer unit to a floating calculator can be an Anacite, though more insectoid forms are common. However, Anacites have one thing in common: intelligence. There are still plenty of non-sentient machines on the planet. They are not Anacites. It is those with the ability to think for themselves who are called Anacites, despite what those from off-world seem to think. Which brings us to a first side tangent, the part of the show where we ensure accurate information. For example, what are SROs, and why are Anacites different from them? SROs stand for Sentient Robotic Organisms, and are robots who have become sentient. They are made in a way that they appear in a humanoid form. This is the main component of what separates SROs from Anacites, being that robotic, by definition, requires something to be humanoid as opposed to insectoid, despite insectoids being more efficient creatures, but I digress. That said, SROs do have a diverse form of looks, usually appearing close to the forms of the species that built them, or that the species that built them specifically based them off another creature that they like the design of. What makes it even more confusing is Aballon is welcoming to all machine kind to live there, including androids and SROs. So the advice is usually the same as with meeting any new people, which is to ask and respect. Though again, rule of thumb, humanoid and insectoid. In the absence of their creator, their gods, the Anacites have slowly broken into two groups. Plus one, but that's the side tangent of all, isn't it? The first is those who wait. They believe the First Ones will return to them when the time is right, and continue to work towards that day. They work to stockpile resources, continuing on in the way they have for millennia. The other group is those who become, who believe that the duty left by the First Ones is not to wait for their gods, but to become gods. They work more on self-improvement, work to get ready to spread across the galaxy, working to reach a point where they themselves can become the first ones of other species. Of course, these two philosophies tend to clash just a bit, but there are cities whose rules are specifically to work together, despite these differences, and the mechanical creatures continue to carry on as they always have. But in addition, we have a third group, a cult, and therefore a side tangent. They are those who create. This group believes they were abandoned by the first ones, and the right action is not to wait or become, but create a new god. They point out their species' prior success, the mechanical god Epoch, as proof that they are in the right. Each individual cell of the cult builds their own god, working to follow the will of the crazed AIs who tend to come from this process. Some of these cells just result in the monster they create self-terminating, leading to its followers being abandoned once again. Unfortunately, others lead to devastating practices as the cultists try to please their god. Now, on to cities. The globe is divided between two different kinds of cities, those made by the first ones and those made by Anacites. The first one cities are considered holy grounds and Anacites are not allowed to enter, though some groups are more than willing to send off-worlders in to investigate. It is the city named Eternity where a majority of these missions take place, but the others are known for a variety of reasons as well. Enduring has always been known for massive energy surges, which led to the Vesk to attack the city in an attempt to conquer it. During the gap, the city of Infinity teleported a few miles away for no known reason. Myriad is not far from the planet's capital Striving, and earthquakes tear down any buildings that are built too close to the city, mysteriously. Ubiquity is full of mysterious spires with no entrances, and which cannot be teleported into. Constant has little for it to stand out, or at least it did until Starfighter times, when incredibly hard vegetables erupted from the ground. Boundless seems to have a massive vault stretching on for unknown miles, filled with endless scales, leading some to suspect it is either connected to Axis, or that the city is actually a giant robot. Of course, some cities are harder than others to explore. Timeless has robots constantly made as defenders, and Continuum is covered in a continuous dome of force. As for Anacite cities, most of them were built during the times between Pathfinder and Starfinder, all of them being megaplex cities. The capital of Aballon, the largest of these megaplexes, and most technologically advanced city in all of the Pact worlds, is Striving, the one-stop shop for all technological equipment. It is also home to the district known as the Theology Channel, home to the worship of various gods, demigods, and demon lords across the Pact worlds. Basically everything you can think of that people might worship or experiment in worship of. The second largest city is Anacites, which has since ancient times been home to the largest forges of Anacites and, therefore, the city that many of these creatures refer to as home. The solar crater has long been home to an array of solar panels which give the world its power, and by Starfinder times a city, Endeavor, has been built surrounding the crater. Perception is constantly being built and turned down to try to improve, and Pursuit, the smallest of these megaplexes, is the most factory-heavy and the most polluted city on the planet. There are also two satellites to mention, First, floating close to the ground is the floating factory known as the Earth's Eye orbital plate, and farther up in the actual atmosphere was 01, which nowadays serves as a trade port with other planets. Which, speaking of the megaplexes, brings us to Side Tangent 3, a former city of Aballon, which is no longer upon the planet's surface, because it is raised to godhood. That's right, it is Epoch, one of the 3 facets of Triune, and secretly the reason why I'm making this video. I did Big already, and there is not enough to make a full video on Epoch. Either way, Epoch was created by the Anacites as its most impressive city, being the capital city for the group that was those who become. Here, they turned the entire city into an artificial intelligence. The number of machines it took to maintain a deity when it was still fledgling was massive. And then, when they were finally on the verge of succeeding, Epoch stopped talking to his creators, instead speaking to them in riddles, as all good gods should. This relationship lasted for countless centuries until Epoch reached out to 2 other mechanical deities, and the rest is history. Outside the vast cities, there have been various different settlements by organic people in the various ice wells of the planet, locations which dig deep into the ground and do not get as much direct sunlight, allowing water to form and freeze, but that is not as big an issue. The largest is what was once known as Horse Throat, and now known as Frozen Nulumbo in Starfighter times. Another less populated ice well is the deepest, the Gullet. For other locations on the surface, the Midnight Trenches, the name of various mines of precious metals, have always been one of the centers of industry for the Anacites. The Sea of Glass is a location that was turned into a layer of glass and gems due to a long-forgotten explosion. And finally, the Fields of Judgment is a 50-mile-wide field which breaks down mechanical creatures the closer it gets to the center, and is considered a form of execution by the locals. Now, as we finish off our look at the planet, let's look at one more side tangent to examine a mechanical philosophy, singularitarianism. It is the belief of all intelligent life will one day become a vast technological network, rising above any other deity. A belief system strongest among the Anacites. The belief comes in 3 subschools: interventionism, mechanonaturalism, and singular directive. Interventionism are similar in mind to those who become, believing the slow transformation through mechanical parts while keeping the core intact. It's also known for developing technology for common people, and the people and the followers are either followers of Triune, Eluritu, or being irreligious. Mechanonaturalists, in turn, primarily follow Oras, and mainly treat their sect as an actual faith. They believe mechanization is the next stage of evolution, but that it must happen naturally, and do little to speed up the eventual transformation of all to machines. Finally, the singular directive cares little for the body, fully believing that the perfect mechanical network needs the perfect mind before anything else. Therefore, they work to create an AI, even greater than Epoch was, in order to have something to successfully advance humanity to its mechanical destiny, even if genocide of the unworthy will be necessary. Not exactly the branch with the best reputation. But anyway, that brings an end to today's video. And with it, we have also done 2/3 of Triune. Still going to be a while before I do an action video on Starfinder's Triune. But for now, let's see how far we can get with Pathfinder deities. But not next week. Next week we head back to Golarion to look at another country. So this one is a bit of a trip. See you then.